All right. All right. All right. It is the return of the Salt Lake Sit Down. I have given up labeling or given them a number, episode 5 or whatever. No, this is the Serious Chest Rockwell has something to say episode. And I know both he and I, we've talked on and off in DMs and on Twitter. And today is the day we decided today must be the day that we have the talk. Because apparently a lot of you guys out there, you think you get it and you don't. And so we got to give you yet another fucking reminder. Chest, take it away.
Well, as your semi-annual reminder, all commies get the block. Ball did nothing wrong. Never take any wooden nickels. But other than that, you guys are fucking it up because you don't know what you want. That is the beginning of the story and the end of the story and the middle of the story.
It's the entire fucking story.
And I understand how many of you got here to this point. Okay, you're pissed. You feel as though that the world has been lying to you for all of this time. You have an epiphany that, wham and bad. You need some type of roadmap to get you away from feeling like you either want to murder yourself or others. And that rage has brought you to a point where you're either going to learn or you're going to become a degenerate. And, there's nothing stopping you from being one or the other or both. But the major problem is that you haven't figured out where your starting line is. You always want to be doing triage in the middle of your already fucked up life. And the major issue is that you haven't figured out, one, what it is that you want for an end goal. And secondly, you don't know where to start in order to get to that point. So here's the thing. You can't sit on the fence because you're going to end up with splinters in your ass. You need to take action and you need to get back to basics. And for basics, the number one question that you must answer for yourself, what is it that I want? What do I want? Okay? If you can't answer that question, all of the books, sidebars,
videos, all that shit is jargon, just jerking off.
Jargon, any of it, correct. It's all jerking off. It doesn't help you at all. The very first Rule Zero show that was done, way back in the when people with 21 in their name and the Tomasis of the world got along and they did conventions together and they made money and they had a peaceful coexistence. The very first episode, the very first thing that was said on the show that made any sense was self-improvement is masturbation. Okay? Self-improvement is masturbation. You need to get back to that understanding of how all of this works. You can sit and read every Tony Robbins book. You can sit around and, do Dale Carnegie 14 times until you can do a toast in Latin. I don't give a fuck. The thing is that you're going to be at a point where you need to put what you learn into action with people that you want to influence, whether they're men or women, because this whole red pill thing and game and all of the things that you need to do to have useful adult relationships is done with men and women. And I think that the only problem that I see more than anything else is that a lot of guys in the red pill space know less about men than they do about women, if that's even possible. You guys don't fucking know how other men react and behave, and you don't know about social economic strata, and you also don't know about how social hierarchies work amongst men. Okay, a lot of you are just straight up pussies. You wouldn't last 10 minutes in the 80s or the 90s being, bullied by your average dork in high school.
Yep.
And the reason being is that you've been allowed to create this cloistered image of yourself online, and you face no immediate repercussions for any of the dumb shit that you say. And the fact is that, myself and people who are anonymous and Rob who's semi-anonymous and a lot of us also have that buffer. But we have the prior experience of knowing that if you say something dumb to somebody in person, whether it's a woman, a cop, another man who is just having a bad day, you can get fucked up, like for real. Not like, oh, okay, I'm just going to call this woman a cunt on TV or on the internet, and nothing's going to happen to me. Okay, well, try that in person with 5 other guys around her and see what happens. They'll throw you into a dumpster. Okay, so the thing is that some of you need the most basic of calibration. Some of you need a tune-up. Some of you need a major overhaul because you've been crashed into a wall. If you want to talk about, some of the sidebar reading, one of them is, basic motorcycle maintenance. And the reason why we have that as something on the sidebar is because it teaches you how systems work and how to fix things systematically. And a lot of you guys need to start at the beginning. You need your frames dipped, your wheels sent away to get re-chromed, and without your basics, you're going to start trying to dip into concepts, and you're going to become some armchair red pill philosopher who still doesn't fuck. And that's not the point of any of this.
Right.
I don't care if you know what the differences between the Indian socioeconomic definition of hypergamy and Rollo's definition of hypergamy. I give 2 fucks. Okay. The fact is that I know all that shit too. And the reason why I don't talk about it is because I'm tired of hearing about it. We're past that point now. Most of us are at the point where we don't need to, go out there and sarge. Okay. Or we already know what it is and we know how to do it. I don't need to teach you any of that. Okay. My life is on hard mode. Yours is not. You don't have other people to look after or feed. I do. Okay. My relationship is my only relationship. Okay? The woman that I'm with every day is the only one I game. Okay. And the fact that you lived your life, completely online is something that you need to overcome. And you need to be able to meet up with people in real life, learn these interactions, and figure out a way to essentially make up for this buffer that's been created for you to basically be some type of virtual badass that you're not. Stop it.
Well,
I just see the Michael Jordan meme in my head. Stop it. Get some help.
And wasn't it you were one of the guys on the married red pill? I know it used to be in your bio at one point that you said you ain't shit and it's okay.
Yep.
That's one of our biggest slogans. That, and some of the typicals. The acta non verba, which means actions over words. Right.
And then you have your issues with, just the biggest issue with that, you're not shit and it's okay, is that it gives you the mindset that whatever you're feeling, however hurt you are, however angry you are, more likely than not, others have already been there. They've already felt the same thing, and it doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you unique. Your truth isn't better than the truth of anybody else who can say the same damn thing. I was divorce raped, and I lost one of my 2 cars, and we had to sell the house, and okay, well, so did everybody else, man. I mean, that's the whole point, is that I'm not here to save the West. I'm not even here to save you. I'm here to save myself first. And if I can say something that makes it easier for you to exist in this world, then great. I don't get paid to do any of this. I've been in this space since, holy Christ. I give you a little bit of, Batman origin story on me. As far as being in the male space, I was a speechwriter for Promise Keepers at one time. Okay, so I was in a crowd of 900,000 guys in the Capitol in my very early 20s at a march called Bridging the Gap. Okay, And essentially it was the largest rally of dudes basically promising to man up in the history of mankind. All right. And what did it
man up?
I know. And what did it do to change society or any of its laws or any of its rules or any of the momentum
Nothing.
heading into? Did absolute jack shit.
Yep.
Okay. So whenever you hear these people say, you know, I've been red pill for 3 years, you know, okay, well, cool. You know, I've been in the male space for
nobody gives a shit.
Nobody gives a shit, you know. I've been here almost 20 years and it's not something that I'm proud of. It has something more to do with the fact that I can see what's going on and I can see what's wrong and I can see the patterns that happen in people over and over and over again. And I think that's what makes me and guys like Ryan and Wine More Please and other guys on the married red pill space who, you know, we often get accused of not being red pill, you know, because, oh, you're in relationships, you know, you don't understand what it's like to date or get girls anymore. No, you're right, because we have to game the same girl every fucking day. Okay. And look at how much more difficult that would be when they already know all your shit. Okay. Every time you
step up and say I'm a red pill alpha male, and they go, yeah, whatever, buddy, that's cute.
Right, yeah. Every time you go out for Indian food and you almost shit your pants running into the house, you know, that's her impression of you at that moment. Okay, it's never going to be perfect always, and the fact that you're trying to come off as some alpha all the time, it's just not going to work. The simple fact is that she sees you, she knows you, she learns you the same way that you learn her over an extended period of time. And if you haven't, figured it out that, the person that you're with is smart enough to figure out your strengths and weaknesses and what your thumb screws are and what she can say to completely piss you off, then you're a moron, okay? It's as simple as that. I cannot help people who are socially uncalibrated when they don't know the basics of how people interact. And I get it. Some of you grew up in single mother households with, a borderline personality mom who basically had you and the rest of your siblings as a check. And that fucking sucks. And I get it. Okay. But at the same time, you're all grown up now. You put on your pants one leg at a time every morning, and you're either trying to make things better for yourself every day or you're not. And one of the worst ways that you can try to make things better for yourself is not know what the fuck it is that you want. And if you never know what you want, you're never going to figure out what it is that you need to do in order to get to the point that you need to in order to be happy with somebody else in your life. So that's my introduction. And we're seeing it all over the net now. Everybody's getting these serotonin hits of, wham and bad. Oh my God, he held her accountable. Bitch, please. Nobody holds anybody accountable online, especially women, and especially not, when it comes to their behavior. I mean, what are you going to do? Unless they're raping little kids, there's nothing that can be done to a woman with what she does with her body. Okay? End of story. She could be having sex with 4 different guys a day, and you could post it in Times Square, and there'd be a fifth dude that would walk up and say, well, holy shit, maybe she can slot me in.
Yeah, exactly. Okay? So you mean I have a chance?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the issue here, is that you're thinking in some fantasy world of what it is that we can do to women as a whole in order to make them behave, which is nothing. And you also have the same issue of, what can we do to guys to get them to stop enabling these women? Also nothing. Okay? There's always going to be a segment in the population of simps, white knights, and other dorks who always play the nice guy in order to try and get even the slightest whiff of ass. Okay? And you're never going to fix these fuckers, ever. So don't try. Let them burn. You can only work on yourself and those closest to you, and that's it. You need to start there. And if you want to try and figure out what it is that you want and you're having a hard time with it, then that's where you can sit back and reflect and read and figure out what it is that you find useful. because there are some guys out there who are never going to get married, and they know that because that's how they feel about the institution. You know, they've worked it out in their mind that, you know, I'm just not going to put myself through that because I think it's dumb. Okay. And Rob, you know, admittedly falls into that category.
Yeah,
and
I've already done the married thing and I'm not doing it again.
Right.
So.
And I don't begrudge anybody who says that. And I don't say that Rob's any lesser of a man because, you know, he's not going to put out his Rob sperm into the world and,
Oh, I do that part. I'm just not putting a state sanctioned license on it. That's
well, yeah. But I mean the whole be fruitful and multiply stuff that also a lot of times goes along with the, you know, the quote unquote traditional, you know, view of relationships. And the funny thing is me being probably one of the, you know, blood reddest guys out there, because if anybody who knows me closely, they know that I don't put up with any shit when it comes to male-female relationships. I have what would consider to be probably one of the strongest trad starter sets you'd ever want to have. But the fact is that I don't look at any of those, you know, trappings in life or situations or current relationships as some type of, you know, status symbol. I don't pound my chest and say, oh, you know, I got married and I've been married for over 20 years and I've got, you know, one boy, one girl, teenagers, you know, a 5,000 square foot house, you know, 2 BMWs, you know, look at me, you know, I'm the alpha Chad of the trads. And, you know, that's just bullshit. Chad. Yeah, that's right. I'm trad Chad. Exactly. You know, I'm out here. I got the, you know, I got all of the girls in the choir swooning at fucking church or some bullshit. You know, who cares? Nobody gives a shit.
Exactly. The
fact is that the way that you want to run your life is the way that you want to run your life. Figure that out first. Okay?
Yes.
You know, and part of the best way to start with that, and Rob can attest to this, is you have to get away from the moralizing and put yourself in a situation where you feel no shame. That is the best way to do it. And
Preach.
And people don't get this. They think that they need a system first and they need to find a way for them to fit into it. No, you need to first say, I am cool with who I am. You know, I don't need anybody to tell me that my behavior is, you know, unbecoming or untoward and that I need to change. So who knows? I may have a beard. You don't know.
Might. You don't know. I know, at least when I saw him. I can, and I'm not going to confirm or deny the gloriousness of his beard. Okay. But you're right. Keep going.
Yes.
Keep going.
Yeah. So what we're ending up with now is a situation of very binary thinkers in this space. And you have to really parse out what people are saying because they're looking for very strong reactions, either very positively or very negatively. And because of the way the internet works, it rewards either response.
Yes, it rewards both. As long as there's a lot of engagement, whether you consider you like it or you dislike it, the person who said or did whatever, if they get a lot of response, then they are rewarded. That's how the internet, Twitter, all that shit, that's how it works.
Right. It's eyes on advertising. Okay. So if you're pissed off, you're going to continue to click on this channel or other channels because you want to see what that asshole has to say next that gets you hot and bothered. Okay. Whatever's going to make you print that 5,000 word comment down in the Twitter, you know, in the YouTube comments, you know, you'll TLDR, I'm a piece of shit. That's essentially how every one of those should be treated.
Yes.
And in our minds, that's how we end up treating you because we really don't give a fuck about your individual opinion. If you want to know, you know, precisely.
Or the one letter response to that, Kay.
Yeah, please. You know, go ahead and, you know, down in the comments below, you know, at least use some fucking paragraphs if you want me to read any of that shit.
Or in my case, I'm not even going to bother reading the paragraph. I'll just scroll to the bottom and then write K. And then
Yes.
what did
Yeah.
you say? What did you read it, Rob? No, I ain't got time for that shit. I don't give a fuck what this guy had to say. If he had to write a novel, that tells me, dude, you spend way too much time on the internet.
Yes. And the thing about it that bothers me the most is that a lot of people have really built, their personal identities around these parasocial relationships. I like Rob, and I like getting on air with Rob, and I like speaking with Rob and bantering with him on Twitter. But Rob has no bearing on my day-to-day life, on my income, not on raising my kids, not on my relationship with my wife, not on what I'll eat for breakfast in the morning, unless, he suggests something and I say, oh, that sounds yummy, I might try that. Because the fact is that these are parasocial relationships. These are relationships that are created because you see someone that has something in common with you, or has a similar sense of humor, or a sense of irony, or is a sarcastic prick. And, you tend to want to interact with people who are like you in that regard, or have similar thoughts to you, because then it reaffirms that you are a person with worth. Okay? That's all that means. I mean, I'm sure it would be very frightening if I went online and I saw nobody that I had anything in common with. I mean, that would probably be one of the scariest goddamn things that could happen to somebody. But, the fact that there are communities for every type of human being out there, from, furries to Mormons, means that... means that there's somebody probably out there for you too, who also has the the socket parts for your plug. So maybe you might want to look there as far as who it is that you might find to be someone that you could engage with in real life. But I'm not here to tell you how to pick up. There's 1,000 guys out there who are better at it now than I am, because they've been in better practice. They do it, in today's current, dating environment. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, back in my day, we used to do this and this, because that's annoying and useless.
Exactly.
Well,
yes.
But what I can do is say that, back when I used to do certain things, and some things that have carried over that still work, there are guys out there who know what they're doing. And, again, they will get you to that base of interfacing with a woman and possibly getting laid. Okay. But that's in many cases about as far as they go. And some of those guys live that lifestyle for years and years and years and years, and they do fine with it, and it suits their personality, and they don't have any issues. Some of them start to get older, and they say, holy shit, what am I still doing this? I'm kind of stuck doing this because I've turned it into a business model, and I've run through so many women now, nobody in the real world really wants to hang out with me long term. So what do I do? And that's where you need to find people who are at a stage in their life where you also want to find yourself at a certain point. And that's why the Rule Zero panel is pretty good in that regard, because it starts with cocky youngsters, semi-youngsters, like John in the beginning. And then you work your way all the way to, the older married and older divorced guys like, Rich and Rollo. So there's everybody in between who has all of these different types of relationships, whether they're still doing pickup like, Troy, or they're doing, spinning plates like a lot of the guys still do, like, John Fitch. You need to find, where you are in your journey, and kind of pick up from those people whether or not you feel as though you're comfortable in getting instruction, either free or paid, from them. But in the end, if you don't know what you want and you don't know where you are, none of that matters. You're just going to be getting a huge shotgun, pellet blast from everybody in every one of those episodes, and you're going to try and synthesize everything at once. And too many cooks spoil the broth, especially when we don't even know what we're cooking.
And I want to jump in if I can for just a minute, Chest, because
Sure.
I want to address this, what you're talking about right fucking now, because I've been there. Okay. I see a lot of guys, whether on Twitter or in the Discord, and it's, I need to read just one more book, watch one more video. I need to go back and reread this for the 12th time. All that shit. Okay. I've done it. I did it back in the 2000s when the internet was not quite the thing that it is today. Okay. But I did the books. I did the DVDs. You know, I'm dating myself, you know, because we're going back to that technology. If I just watch this DVD course, you know, David D'Angelo one more time on Cocky Funny, man, then I will get it. And then I will be ready to go out and talk to the women. Okay. And I'm seeing guys doing it right now in real time. If I just watch Ryan's videos, and I'm not throwing shade at Ryan, Ryan's got some great content, but it's the idea that if I just watch Rollo one more time, if I just watch one more Rule Zero, if I just read Mystery Method for the third time, because then I'll really synthesize and absorb it, and it'll be osmosis because I'll sleep on the book, all that kind of shit. Okay, I did it, guys. I did that shit. It's a cope. It's a way for you to say, well, if I just do it one more time, then I'll be ready to go out and talk to girls, when the reality is, no, you just need to fucking go out and do it. Okay, but continue, please, Chest. But that was my 2 cents I wanted to throw in on that one.
Well, I mean, if you get the pressure flip wrong, all that fucking work doesn't matter anyway. So I mean, I don't understand. You know, yeah, you're right, Rob. I mean, the problem does come down to paralysis of analysis a lot of times.
Yes.
And if any of you have ever golfed before, this is probably the biggest problem with golf instruction as well, besides, you know, interpersonal relationships, is that people get too hung up in technique and the teachings of certain people, and they feel as though that there's only one proper way to do something, and in the end they don't practice enough or just dig out their method out of the dirt like most good golfers do, and they end up playing golf swing and not golf. So because they're always learning how to try and hit the ball better, but they never learn how to actually play the game well. They putt for shit, you know, their short game's terrible, they score terribly, but they say, well, I hit the ball dead straight, you know, 200 yards every time with a 5-iron. Well, that's fantastic, because you play golf swing and not golf. And that's what's happening with these guys when it comes to, you know, dealing with women. They play pickup artist or whatever video game version of themselves. They play desirable guy. Let's say you call the video game desirable guy. You know, I've learned all the desirable traits. I know all the things that I could possibly say to be attractive to somebody, but I never put it into practice. And because of that, I come off as unnatural, and I'm actually unattractive doing these things because it's incongruous to who I am as a person. None of it makes sense to who I am as a person first, and then applying some type of techniques to try and get you out there and make you stand out amongst a bunch of other dudes who don't know what they're doing. That's essentially what it is. Okay. You know, it's verbal and visual peacocking. This is the most basic stuff of pickup. You know, you either say something that differentiates you from the pack, or you look a certain way that differentiates you from the pack in order to gain the attention of a possible person that you may want to sleep with, you know, within the next day or so. That is how those types of systems were set up. And again, is that what you want? Do you want to go out there? Do you want to, you know, learn all this stuff? Do you want to wear a fuzzy top hat, paint your nails, and all this other bullshit? Or do you want to, you know, just find somebody nice, settle down, have a couple of kids, and, you know, pay taxes for the rest of your life? It's all about goals, man. And
well, and to go along with that, one of the other things I've seen a lot is guys that are single. I'm assuming based on their words and behavior on the internet, they're single. They've probably never had any kind of real relationship of any kind, really. But they want to go straight from being single to like jumping straight over to getting married. They want the wife because Red Pill Alpha Male Apex 3.0 talked about the sanctity of marriage. All right, whatever it was, they don't have any experience. They want to run before they even learn how to walk.
Here's the thing. I any guy in this space who really, has a desire to be with somebody because they want to be with them, you would better have a harder erection for the woman that you're seeking to get with than the guy who's telling you how to get her. And I don't think a lot of these guys do. I think a lot of these guys are gay as fuck for their guru, and they're lukewarm for women. And because of that, there's this, disconnect in, what it is that you want. I mean, if you want male attention and affirmation, join the fucking military. I mean, because that's the place to go for, the brotherhood and the, doing it for God and country. Okay. It's not, your local bar where you hang out with some guy and do fucking axe toss for a couple of hours, and walk over to a table of girls and say, hey, my friend and I are heading to a different place after this. You want to come along? That's that's not the same. All right. A lot of these people, if you say one fucking bad word about, their chosen guru, they immediately get offended for them. I mean, this is, it's bad enough when you white knight for a woman because, you're
simping for dudes. Oh God, that's horrible.
Simping for dudes is the fucking worst.
It is. That's worse than white knighting for a woman.
Yes.
At least that one makes sense. You're trying in this vain, naive attempt of hope. I hope she sees this, man, and she'll want to fuck me. So I get that one, but simping for a dude, oh God, that's the worst.
Whenever I see any dude doing apologetics for, Tony Robbins or Jordan Peterson, I'm like, you're fucking gay. You're gay. You're gay. Yeah. I don't even need to go any further right now. You're gay for your guru. Fucking stop. Full stop. I can't stand, a guy who will put himself out there online and say, well, I understand he got addicted to pills, and his daughter's a thought, and, but his wife was sick, and, he's got it hard. You don't understand what it's like being a millionaire on a speaking tour.
This guy's simping for Peterson. Nice. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, you don't understand how, fundamentally, the 12 rules get down to the anima and animus. And I'm like, fuck off. Just shut up. Okay. For one thing, you don't know jack shit about, enough about early psychology in order to make any type of claims or, of knowledge of any of that stuff. You've gotten it all secondhand or off Wikipedia or some shit, or you read one goddamn thing about, any of those guys, whether it be Freud or any of his early proteges, and now you've got it in your fucking head that this guy is like the, version 3. No, this isn't a Moses, Noah, fucking Jesus progression of people you need to listen to in order to improve your life. It hasn't gone from, Freud or, Wittgenstein or anybody else up to Peterson to give you these 12 rules that are all of a sudden going to fucking save you. And the only reason why that asshole didn't say 10 rules is because it would have been too close to the 10 commandments and everyone would have seen through his bullshit. So fuck that guy. And fuck all of that stupid shit that he says that has nothing to do with the ways to improve your own life. I don't give a shit about his pronoun issues. I don't give a shit that he taught, at a PhD level at some Canadian university. I don't care.
Yep.
The thing that I do care about is when men get so wrapped up in his rules that they start to use it as a blueprint on how they're supposed to live their life and be happy, beyond the fact of just, getting up and making your bed and washing your balls. That's bullshit. It's all fucking bullshit. He's got you hoodwinked, to the point where you're living your life vicariously through him. And you're hoping that he doesn't fuck up because the fact that you've invested so much time and energy in him learning his rules that you fucking look stupid when he fucks up. Can you imagine living your life that way, that you have to worry about the reputation of the person that you read books from in order to not feel bad about yourself? You're no fucking worse than the 17-year-old trans girl who's pissed off at J.K. Rowling about the fact that you liked Harry Potter.
Oh God, Chest, you just brought up something. You mentioned late last year, like in December, that guys are talking about women in the abstract. Okay, and I remember that. Ryan even brought it up, and I was like, oh, that was a good one. Just like the little meme that you created, okay, that I used for the thumbnail for this show. Okay. Not only are guys talking about women in the abstract, they're simping and condoning for their male guru, for their behaviors and their actions. What does that say about you as the guy?
Okay. Well, it basically says that you're a consumer who is more concerned with your image of what you consume than you are about being happy as yourself. And
it comes back to you don't know what the fuck you want.
Yeah, you don't know what the fuck you want. You know you want to accomplish something, but in the end, do you really want to be the foremost expert on the 12 rules? Or do you want to be the expert on, Rollo's version of hypergamy? Yeah. Do you want to be the expert on cocky funny? Do you want to be the expert on, push pull? Do you want to be the expert on, leave her better than you found her? Do you want to be the expert on, fucking energies and, sunning your asshole and stirring your fucking coffee with chopsticks?
Using the vortex method.
Whatever. The point is that you are picking up people's catchphrases and combining it into some Voltron of retardation. Fucking stop it. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you are doing. Okay, you're taking everybody's catchphrases and turning it into some mythical, way of life called red pill in your mind. And none of that is true. None of it's true. All it is a way to engage you in a certain snappy way. And when I talk about most of these guys out here knowing and talking about women in the abstract, means that they don't fuck. They don't meet women in real life. They don't talk to them. They don't have personal relationships with them that last more than 18 minutes at a time. They look at them as fucking objects. And, now fucking Chest is simping for women because, he considers them more than a warm hole. Well, you know what? Then fuck you. Because the fact is that they are more than that. They're human beings, just like you. You got to deal with the fucking fact that they have, minds, that they can manipulate people, that they can think 3 steps ahead, and that your shitty checkers that you're learning from all these gurus is going to fucking fail in the face of a woman who's been playing chess since she was 13. Because that's how long it's been since guys have wanted to fuck her. That is what you need to know. You are always behind until you learn. You're always behind. And the fact that you're learning in your mid-20s to your early 30s about what it is to try and get your dick wet with women who have been avoiding fucking bad penises since age 13, you're fucking playing in the major leagues with a wiffle ball bat. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And the fact that you think you can pick this up by just reading a bunch of books and not actually putting any of this into many, many hours of practice, getting out there and talking to people and learning what it is to be, a social human being before you even try to, work some magic with some 7+. God damn it, man. None of this is a black box. Okay? You can't just put inputs into a system and get inputs out. It doesn't work that way. They're not computers. This isn't a game. Even though it's called game, it's not, played by rules of logic. It's not played by any of that bullshit. So, in the end, you need to learn what people are like first before you could even attempt to try and penetrate them. Think about this for a second, okay? What you're trying to do. Hey, you're trying to gain someone's trust, interest them physically, attract them emotionally, and then finally put your dick in them, okay? This is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be difficult. And, you know, trying to make it easy is a fool's errand. And anybody who tells you, you know, well, this is the total number of steps you need in order to score.
Anyone that says they have a magic bullet is bullshit.
Complete bullshit. They can give you tips. They can help you. They can tell you what has worked for them or other people that they know. If they've seen it work in enough in enough different people, then you can say with some degree of certainty that this might work for you. Okay. But that assumes you have the basics. Like, you know, you don't smell like shit. You have a decent haircut.
You washed your ass.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You know, you're wearing clean, well-fit clothing. You know, just literally the NPC basics of life. You know, the non-playing character, ordinary looking person is what you need to start with. And you're not even up to that point yet. Whether it's understanding other people or in appearance, you know, you've got a long way to go, and it's unfortunate. But, you know, again, it's knowing what you want first and foremost. Second, putting yourself into position to be able to learn, okay, and not worship. Holy fuck. I think that's a big issue. And third, just getting yourself into the basics of what is attractive to other people. Okay. Those three things will get you in the right direction almost immediately. And for hundreds of years before the internet, normally if you got those three things right, you'd luck into a long-term relationship or a marriage. You know, one day you'd just be sitting there walking around and you know, you'd look up and you'd see, you know, a smile on a pair of tits. And, you know, 3 years later, she's dragging you to the altar and you don't know what the fuck happened because you're in a daze of, you know, orgasms and, you know, happy thoughts of the future. So, you know, you need to be intentional with what you're doing. Okay. And if you're not, in the world that we live in, it's gonna, you know, chew you up and spit you out. You can't go through life on somebody else's system, and you can't go through life hoping that something is going to happen. You need to take some action. So that's a pretty good 40-minute introduction into why I am pissed off at you. But at the same time, I think that, you know, in the end, there's hope. You know, you're smart enough to want to learn, which is, I think, better than 70% of the population. Okay. Because there's a lot of people out there who just don't care, or they've given up, or they allow life to happen to them, as opposed to being, you know, proactive within it. You have to get out of a reactionary mindset very, very early on. You can't say that I'm going to make my decisions based on what the world is throwing at me at this point in time. You're not a good-looking young chick. You can't live your life that way. Young women who are attractive they can, for some reason, you know, the way that things are set up, they can literally just walk down the street and good things will happen to them depending on what it is that they want that day. And, you know, a lot of that comes with the condition of, you know, you're going to give up a lot of your personal space to penises. So, you know, this is the world that we live in. Okay. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that guys want sex and women know that guys want sex.
Well, and to add to that, going back to the, you know, the whole point really of what do you want? And I've brought it up before, did a blog post, did a video. I promote that particular video because when I figured that out for me, at the tender age of about 42, 43. Okay. It took me that fucking long. All right. You have to come at this not only with what works, what doesn't, but Chest brought it up early on in the show. And that is you have to have an amoral point of view. You have to look at it, and instead of, well, this goes against Jesus, or this goes against, my bros who are trying to save the West, or this goes against, those evil, bad, dirty, naughty degenerates. Okay. You have to step outside of all of that and just go, you have to come at it from an amoral perspective. You have to look at it and go, okay, does this work for me? And you have to look at it from the perspective of, first, you have to know, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want to just date a bunch of women, and go through a rotation, which is more or less what I'm doing? Or do you want the wife? Do you want the children? Do you want all that stuff? You have to figure out for yourself what you want first, and then come at it from an amoralistic perspective. And most guys, I think, get hung up that they think amoral means immoral. And it's like, no, they are two different things. Amoral is just, it is what it is. What works, what doesn't, never mind what anyone thinks about it. Does it work or does it not? Does it get me closer to what I want? Does it get me further away from what I want? And then from there, once you figured out that amoralistic side of, hey, this works or it doesn't, then you go into the morality of, can I look at myself in the mirror in the morning? Can I look at myself and say, I'm okay with this? Or, oh God, I don't like where this is going. Because even for me, I have my own moral code. I do. There are things I will not do because I've done them and I didn't like what I looked like in the mirror in the morning. Okay. But then there's other things that I'm like, fuck it. I'm good with that. I'm fine. And so that's what I do because it works for me and I know what I want. Okay. That's the point you guys have to get to at some point. And that's where, that's why this whole conversation is happening right now with me and Chest. All right. He said, you're coming in at the middle and you're trying to do triage on a bunch of shit. And I'm looking at it from my perspective of, yeah, you cocksuckers don't know what you want. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And so you get spun up on Jordan Peterson or on this other alpha apex male guy or that other guru. And it's like, do you even know what you want? And are you willing? And that's a big part. Are you willing to take an amoralistic perspective? Are you willing to let go of God for a minute or whatever your church taught you that was right and true and all that? Are you willing to set it aside just for a minute and try out other things to say, is this getting me closer to what I want or is it getting me further away from what I want? And then after the fact, you can apply your morality. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to add to that. There's another reason why we take the position that we want you to review your life from an amoral perspective and your goals from an amoral perspective. Is because morality normally has a activities equal reward type of system. Okay, so whether it's Christianity, if I behave a certain way and I accept Christ into my heart, I will become purified before God, and I will enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so my behaviors, my believing a certain thing, and my doing a certain thing will, end up having a just reward in the end. Okay, you need, as a person, to say to yourself, good things happen to bad people. You see it all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
And bad things happen to good people.
Horrible things happen to wonderful people.
Yep.
Okay, so there is no correlation between how you necessarily behave and what actually happens in people's day-to-day lives. Also, if you're amoral in your wants and desires and you figure out what it is that you want, then you also remove the component from yourself of believing you deserve something. This is key. This is
Thank you.
One of the most important aspects of this is that whatever you do, whatever, moral systems you have, whatever your personal code is, whatever your behaviors are, whatever money you spend, whatever hoops you jump through, that does not entitle you to anything. It entitles you to absolutely nothing. And that is the way that you need to look at this, is that I am doing this for me first. And if it works out for me, great. I've done everything I can in order for, to improve my personal life by, accepting what it is that I want and going after it. One thing, here's a lot of opportunities and possibilities that can all come from that. First, you can get exactly what you want because you had an exact goal and you achieve your goal and you're happy with it, and you're happy enough to where you'll want to stay where you're at, having achieved that goal, and you're excellent with that outcome. Okay. Second option is that you set a goal and you don't achieve it. It makes you unhappy and you continue to go after it, but you have a negative mindset now because you think that you'll never reach what it is that you're getting. Okay. And then a lot of people fall into this third category, and I think Rob can relate to this too, is that I did everything right. I got exactly what I expected from doing all these things, and it's now no longer what I want.
Yes. Yep,
so,
I did it all and I got it, and now what?
Yep.
This isn't what I wanted. What
yes.
the fuck is this? I'm living someone else's life, because that's what I was doing. I was living someone else's life, not mine.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, many days go by. This is not my beautiful wife.
Yeah, exactly. How did I end up here? How did I get here, Days go by? Hey, hang on, Chest. Hang on that.
Yeah.
Hang on to that thought for just a minute. Hang on 1 second. I think that.
Yes. Yeah. This is the point that a lot of you get to. Okay, it's the many
days go by.
It's the many days have gone by. Lots of waters flown underground.
I would even say, Chest, that there are a group of men, because I think I fit into that particular group of men, where it's not that you got divorced, raped, and whamming bad, and you got all fucked up because you had this, Disney fantasy bullshit story that you were sold. It's the fact that it's more like Fight Club, where, hey, Dad, what do I do now? Hey, go out and go to college. Okay, I did that, Dad. Now what? Okay, I don't know. Go out and get a job. All right, Dad. Now what? I don't know. I'll get married. And so you actually succeed. You get all those things that you were told this is what you should want. And so you get them, and then you wake up one day going, how did I get here? Because you just did what you were told. And you wake up and you're fucking miserable because it's not what you wanted. And so you're like, but based on other people's standards, and that's the point here. It's other people's standards.
Well, now you're invested though, Rob, and you've read the 12 rules, and you've made your bed for years and years.
And I petted a cat. And I took my pills.
Still upset. So when somebody says something negative about Jordan Peterson, I get personally offended by it, not because what he's taught me has got me to a better place. It's because I followed every rule that I was told by somebody else. I lived my life in somebody else's frame. And by doing that, I ended up getting to a place where I'm not any happier than I was when I was just sitting around, floating around in the breeze by myself. And this is another part of what do I want? It's the first plank of your frame. It's literally the first thing that you need to learn in order to draw anybody else into your life and your vision of your life. You need to know what it is that you want first. And no one else is going to go along with your vision of life if, every little thing upsets you and you need to confirm it with, your pastor before, you go out to dinner that evening or make any decisions. Are we going to take our child to that PG-13 movie? Well, I don't know. It's not on our approved viewing list over at the chapel, so I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with this, Okay, well, are you living in your priest's frame or are you living in your own frame?
Thank you.
I mean, again, people can be great. People can be excellent leaders. They can be moral bastions of hope for many. Okay. But you're you first. Okay. You should really think about what it is that you want long before you ask, what is it that my sexless pastor wants? Okay. I get this all the time, and and people are always angry when I say it. I said, well, what does the Pope know about marriage? What does the Pope know about marriage? Has he ever been married? Has he ever even had sex? Has he ever had to live with women for a long period of time? Has he ever had to cohabitate with even one woman? No. Has he ever had to have kids? No. He's forbidden from having kids. Does he have any input on whether or not any of those things can better a person's life or make it more difficult? No, because he's a celibate dude who lives in a gilded cage and has the imprimatur from a religion that he's the leader and the voice of God. Well, I don't see very much translation from what that is to what actually happens here on Earth, unfortunately. And people might say, well, he should know because he's got all of this wisdom from books and everything that he can read, and and divine knowledge that comes directly from God. And I'm like, look, man, no popes have solved the world's problems up to this point in the past, 2,100 years. So I'm not really sure if, they're the best people to really use as an example of high level problem solving for world peace or earthly happiness, let alone your bedroom. It's like, Padre, should I bend her over a chair and fuck her in the ass or no? I mean, well, maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what you're talking about. But at the same time, it's just, you look to all of these theorists for the answers in your life, when in fact, a lot of what you need to know comes from people who are on the ground experiencing it every day.
Well, and ultimately, too, not to sound too, chick crack, new agey, woo woo, but you have to look to yourself. You have to decide ultimately, what do you want? Okay, because I did all the steps and I succeeded. I got those things. I got the wife, I got the house, I got the car, I got the dog, I got all that shit, and I was fucking miserable. But I did everything according to the plan, somebody else's plan. And I wanted to kill myself. Guys, you have to figure out, what do you want? And then once you figure that out, and it will change and vary as you go along, because even my goals and shit change and vary as I go along. But you get to a point where you have to figure out, how does this impact me? What does this mean to me? What do I want from this? How does this benefit me? Okay, that's the whole as a real man. And I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. When those guys are 12 rules, go fuck yourself. I got my own rules. And rule number 1 is there's no rules. Okay, that's for me because that works for me.
See, actually, the Joe Dirt rules are my rules. Rule number 1, I'm number 1.
Yes.
that is the rule.
There you go. And rule number 2, if that seems false, see rule number 1.
Exactly.
There you go. You guys have to figure that out, and you are the only ones that can answer that. Okay, you can look at Chest and say, oh wow, Chest, he's been married for X amount of years and he's playing red pill on the hard mode, and he's got the wife and the starter kit trad life, and he's got the children, and he's got the job and all that. And you know what? If that's what you want, then you need to talk to Chest. Okay. You need to talk to Chest. There's things that Chest has got going on that even I'm interested in, that I'm like, how do you do that? Because you've been doing that for a while, and I'm curious. But then there's other times where I look at it and go, there's parts of Chesty's life that I know about that I'm like, that ain't me. Okay. Because I know me and I know what I want. And so there are some things that he talks about that while it's not, he's not wrong, it's just irrelevant to me. It's like, that's not me. I don't care. All right. But you have to decide for yourselves. You have to take your own accountability in your life and decide, what the fuck do I want? Never mind what Chesty thinks, never mind what I think or Rollo thinks or some other Alpha Apex 2.5 fucking dude on the internet thinks, or Jordan Peterson thinks, or the guy that does the Vortex method thinks. You have to ultimately decide, what do you want, and then come from an amoralistic perspective. You have to set aside what you think or others that have programmed you to think is right or wrong. And you have to just look, does this work? Is this getting me closer or further away from what I want? And then once you've ascertained that, yes, it either is getting me closer or no, it's not, then you either proceed and carry on or you dismiss it and try something else. But then you look in the mirror and go, am I okay with who I'm looking at? Does this work for me as a person? Can I look myself in the mirror? And that's your morality at that point. And then whatever anyone else is touting on the internet and spouting off about, you can look at that and go, okay, yeah, this part I get because it gets me closer to what I want. And I can look at myself in the mirror in the morning. Or, dude, that's not getting me any closer to what I want. In fact, if anything, it's pushing me further away. So fuck you. I'm not going to listen. Fuck off. You can die. Thank you. Or even if that does get me closer, but I don't like how I look at myself in the mirror in the morning. You have to figure that out. And nobody, Chest, me, Rollo, Ryan, Rich, John, all the Red Rule Zero guys, the Red Pill guys, all of us, none of us can do that for you. You have to do that for you. You have to figure that out. So figure it out.
Yeah. Only thing I can really add to that is that you have to know yourself before you can look at somebody else and say, is this actually helpful for me?
Yes.
And a lot of guys right now are just a lot of it has to do with people just saying, I'm going to listen to whoever sounds interesting or who is the most engaging. And in many cases, that's not going to be the right person for you or people for you. And you're going to lose, even more time trying to figure it out what it is that you want to learn from these people and what you want, because you're dabbling in people and theories. It's not about creating an image. It really isn't. It's about refining the person that you are into its most attractive version of itself. Because I can't give Rob hair or make him 6 inches taller.
Nope.
That's just not, those things are not possibilities. And, in certain circles, would it help him to get laid? Yeah, sure. So what? The point is that Rob has accepted his own strengths and limitations, and he works it to his greatest advantage and goes out there without a care in the world and says, hey, man, you want to go on this wild ride or not? And if you do, great. And if you don't, there's another table of girls right down there.
There's always another woman.
That's right. That's the interesting thing. We're about 50-50. there's plenty of them. There's plenty of us.
Yeah, there's not a shortage.
Well, but the way that people talk online, they think that there's this segment of man-eating harpies who are unapproachable at all times, and that there's another group that 60. A lot of guys think things like it's 60% lesbians and 30% thoughts and 5% nuns,
quality women.
Yeah, and And, you know, when your mindset is that already poisoned, because literally a lot of you guys, unfortunately, you've been
Poison.
you've been socially poisoned by a lot of the bullshit that you hear from not just people online, but from the media, from all the shit that you think you enjoy watching.
Everything.
Because, you know, what gets the most outrage generally gets the most views.
Yes.
And the more outraged and angry you get at watching something, the more likely you are to come back to it, because you fuckers don't feel anything anyway already. Yep. And because you've been either so numbed up by the fact that you can sit there and, you know, receive all of these dopamine and serotonin hits over and over again because you feel a certain way about something. You know, it's like being a brain in a bag at this point. You don't need to fucking do anything. You can sit right where you are and just experience all this stuff from the, you know, the confines of your screen in your home, okay, wherever that may be. And, yeah, maybe you don't like having to go outside and, you know, getting some fresh air and some sunlight on your skin. But anybody that you would ever want to have sex with probably would prefer it. Yep. And, you know, you're either going to have to adjust your mindset to where you learn to live again, learn to feel again, or you know, you're going to have to make some concessions about your life that, unfortunately, you know, you may be one of those people who either has to pay for sex, or you have to meet somebody else who is just as antisocial as you. And I hope that you don't fall into that circumstance. But I see a lot of guys online, and I interact with, you know, a number of guys online who are apologists for people who, you know, have sex dolls. You know, they're like, well, at least it's better than. No, dude, there is no, at least it's better than. You have normalized mental illness now in many of your circles to the point where you've made it reasonable for people to be very well educated on the red pill, but yet have a wife that is dressed up in clothing daily and has, you know, makeup on it that you've named. Okay. I'm not going to throw any turds at any monkeys, but these are the type of people that you end up following because you're not paying attention to what it is that you really want. You're more interested in feeling something about the, you know, the clout and the outrage, you know, and for some reason, you know, the urban stuff now is starting to pick up steam again. You know, this is also another cycle that we used to deal with. You know, remember hoteps, how they've kind of, you know, fallen off the radar a little bit now. Oh, so now it's the, you know, the urban duos with their podcasts that are always, you know, throwing shade at each other. So you end up with, you know, Fresh and Fit and ABBA and Preach and Earth, Wind and Fire and all these other fucking idiot groups that basically go on air and they flame each other because you fuckers don't know any better than to not watch these assholes do this shit over and over and over again. Okay? You know, have some fucking standards for yourself too. You know, you're being told what to enjoy by people who want you to be stupid. Stop it. Get out there, meet some people, learn something. Learn mostly about yourself. Why is it that I do some of the things that I do? Why do I feel the way that I do? You know, did I not have a father growing up? Did I have someone who abused me? Fix that shit first. Red pill does not say that you should not go to therapy. Okay, this is another thing that I need to impress upon everybody.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, we do not dissuade therapy. We do not say that you should not take medication. We do not say that you should not find a way to become mentally and physically healthy before you try and improve yourself. Okay, baseline stuff, basics. You know, do you feel like shit every day when you wake up? Do you have to make a determination on whether or not you want to shower that day? Are these major decisions that run into the hours for you? If they are, get some fucking help. You're depressed. You're not just angry about not having a woman, but you're clinically depressed. Okay, fix that first. You have no right or ability to put yourself out there in the world and make yourself, impose yourself upon other people if you can't get yourself right first. And in the long run, you're going to have much better relationships because you're going to be a healthier person when you're with these people. Not the worst version of yourself, but a better version of yourself. And, well, what would you expect from anybody? If I got a sick dog that comes to my front door, that's missing half of its teeth and, has a gaping hole in its side, and I take it in and I get it fixed, and then it dies a little while later, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense because that thing came into my life already damaged to essentially the point of no return. If you have a relationship that starts poorly with the wrong, foundation, and you yourself aren't mentally fit enough to even be with yourself, let alone with somebody else, how the fuck do you think that's going to work over time? It's not. Okay, so there is nothing wrong with asking for help, seeking help,
And to add to that, just so that the guys that are a little more polarized will understand this, who else had a binary opinion, a yes or a no? And in this case, it was a no, a very hard no about psychiatry, psychology, all of that. What group was very anti-therapy? Who?
The same retards who believe in thetans and aliens having a strong presence on Earth, and that
and that their guru leader was a science fiction writer.
Exactly. Who wrote shitty science fiction? In fact, the Battlefield Earth series is some of the shittiest science fiction you will ever fucking read. It's horrible.
Let's just call it, I don't know, Scientology.
Yes, that sounds good.
That's a good term for them.
Yes. So I mean,
keep that in mind, guys.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the company you keep is indicative of kind of the positions that you're taking. But even without that, there is we've never had anybody say that you would be better off if you just kind of ground through this yourself and dug yourself up, pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. If you have a mental illness that's caused by a chemical imbalance or years and years of abuse, I'm not going to tell you, continue to handicap yourself with that particular situation and go out into the world and try to become, Alpha Chad. What kind of fucking asshole would that make me? To expect that of you, to have that type of expectation of a person who already has, so many different things going against them. And this isn't a victimhood mentality issue. This is we need to bring you to, baseline human being status. Somebody who is willing to accept, the company of others and can behave reasonably, among other people, regardless of the social circumstance. And unfortunately, Rob and I know people who, unless they are literally told to shut up, behave, knock it off, can't do those things on their own.
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, people like that lose privileges with us. We don't want to fucking be around those types of people. It's not that we don't like you. It's not that we have anything against you personally, but if you're going to fuck it up for the rest of us because we're going to be dragged in by association with a bunch of assholes who are uncalibrated dipshits when it comes to social situations, then I'm just not going to fucking deal with you. And neither is Rob, and neither are the people that we know. Neither are the masculine geeks, none are the Rule Zero guys, nobody. I mean, we've seen uncalibrated people try to move forward in this space, and it doesn't work. It just fucking doesn't work.
No. And it comes back to something that Carl from Black Label Logic said a while back. Because I had brought up, like the beer test. Would I want to go out and have a beer with you? And Carl's like, I'll see your beer test and raise you. Because he even said, not only is it the beer test, but would I want to introduce you to my family? Would I want to introduce you to my girls? Would I want to introduce you to my boss or my coworkers? All of that. And I was like, ooh, good one. This is what Chest is talking about right here. Okay.
Yeah.
And
are you the type of person that another person wouldn't mind saying, hey, this is a person that I know and I can vouch for him, and I would like you to, meet this guy's acquaintance. If you're not that person yet, you need to get there first. Seriously. Yes. Because, it's not just an issue of self-esteem, and it's not just an issue of people should accept me for who I am. No, I'm sorry. The world doesn't fucking work that way. We judge each other all the time. Okay. We may say that we need to be amoral with ourselves, but that doesn't mean the world is amoral with us. You get judged all the time by other people, by your appearance, by the way you speak, by the way that you carry yourself, by the way that you present your ideas, by your speaking voice, by everything. Okay. And the simple fact is that you need to be at a baseline normal level before any of this stuff can take, because you're always putting yourself at a disadvantage if you believe that all the theory that you learn will somehow overcome all of your unattractive personal aspects of yourself that have nothing to do with the red pill. Okay. You need to be, a normally socially calibrated person to the best of your ability prior to even thinking about, moving into what it is that we discuss, on weekends and in our spare time. Because look at it this way too. Rob's got a fucking full-time job. He's sleeping with at least 2 girls that I know of right now. Okay.
I'm working on the 3rd.
Okay. Yeah. He writes a blog. Occasionally he shit posts on Twitter every once in a while, and generally gets his fucking groceries, pays all of his bills.
I pay my taxes. I go to court when I have to. What do you mean I ain't kind? I'm just not your kind, to quote Dave Mustaine. Right. But yes, Chest is making a point here. Absolutely.
Right. So the issue is that, we manage somehow to provide you guys with value to your life and how to be a better person, a better lover, and a better human being in our spare time. We don't even do this as a full-time job. Shit. I have my own law practice. I have 2 kids. I have a wife who has a full-time job. I have civic responsibilities. I do certain things in the community beyond what I already do for my job. Again, I shit post on Twitter too. Before that, I used to do a shitload of writing on Reddit for the Married Red Pill. But do I do this to make money, or do I do this to gain attention from people? No, because none of this is consequential. What actually happens to me in my real life, none of it is. But at the same time, because I don't have to rely on it for money, I also don't have any incentive to steer you wrong. I don't have to pivot if I fuck up. I don't have to change my message if it seems too harsh to some people in order for it to be more mainstream. I don't have to take my message and give it to a woman to try and regurgitate what I have to say online either. I don't have to invent people. I don't have to invent urban shows to try and do my own, say my message, because I don't have to rely on any of those things in order to, I guess, create my brand, because I technically don't have a brand. I don't give a fuck about my brand. So that is another thing that you need to be cognizant of as well. Is that about every 6 to 12 months, somebody's going to fuck up in such a big way that everybody who is associated with that person is going to need to change their major focus of their teaching and their strategies and pivot. Okay, whether it's Rolo bad, 18 months ago, whether it's Pepe Le Pew is sticking. Yes, the Great Schism. whether it's Pepe Le Pew is putting stuff up his ass, and it's 69 for 69 day here on Chatterbait. Whether it's our favorite author starts gunning down women in tattoo parlors. Okay, you recognize now how uncalibrated some of these fucking idiots are that you read and listen to, right? Okay. You need to stop that. You need to look at people objectively, and if they suck, they suck. That's it. You can cut, ties with people. You can, cut bait. You can say, hey, I had a lot invested with this person, but maybe I shouldn't invest so much time anymore. And this also goes for your relationships with women, which a lot of you don't understand too. Is there's this thing called the sunk cost fallacy. All right.
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've spent so much time on this, and so much of my personal reputation and image is wrapped up in this relationship that I don't have a way out. If I fail at this, it means that I am a failure. Okay, bro, step back a minute. No, first of all, no one gives a shit. You know how many people are divorced right now? How many people that you looked up to, maybe even parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles that you've had throughout your life who are no longer together. Okay. Do you still like them? Are they failures because they got divorced? Do you look at them every day and say, oh, look at that failure for getting divorced when he was 45 years old? No one gives a shit, for one thing. And the fact is, nobody cares that much about you and whether or not you decide to break up with a girl. So, and they care much, much less if you care to break up with a dude who's giving you advice online. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to learn things. It's okay to recognize when somebody is full of shit. It's okay to recognize when people are living vicariously through their kids playing baseball. It's okay. It's all right. You can walk away and it's fine. No one's going to judge you because no one gives a shit about you. So revel in the fact that nobody cares, and also, yay, nobody cares.
Exactly. You can either look at life, there's two ways to look at life. There's nobody gives a shit. Or there's nobody gives a shit. Which one do you want? Which do you choose? Do you want to be sad and angry and upset about that nobody gives a shit? Nobody cares that you did whatever. Nobody gives a fuck about your struggle. Or do you want to be like, oh my God, nobody fucking gives a shit. And so you can do what you want. You can try things out. You can be like, I don't care what, the preacher said or my boss said or my dad said or whoever. You get to decide what works for you. Which one do you want? Because one is constricting and it sucks. The other is liberating. It sets you free. You can choose. It's your choice. Decide. What do you want?
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. I have a buddy of mine, very, very smart guy, very does not give a fuck, hasn't really his whole life about a lot of things. And he had a girl that he was dating. She went home while he was in college, and she went home to her hometown and ended up hooking up with like an ex-boyfriend or something and coming back. And he discovered it, like a week later or something. And he basically told her, get your shit and, get out of my house, And she, as a parting shot said, I'm one in a million. You'll never find another person like me. And he said, well, that just means that there's about 4,000 women in the world who are exactly like you. I think I'll be okay. Because if you do the math, there's about 8 billion people on the earth. Okay. And if you cut it in half between men and women, that means there's about 4 billion men or women in the world. And if you say you're one in a million, that means that if you divide a million into 4 billion, that's 4,000 people who are exactly like you. And I like that, because that just basically says, regardless of what metric you use, there's always going to be somebody else out there. And if you have this scarcity mindset that I need to latch onto a girl and this is, what's going to define my life, well then, it's going to be a hard life, man. It really does. Oh, Jesus Christ, Curve.
I know, right? Well, I have to throw this
a private written invitation.
Right. One the other. See, Curve's another one that's OG, if you will, like Chest is, and like Archwinger and some of the other guys. Okay. And Curve and I have talked, just like Chest and I have talked. He's a guy that I'm looking at, the motherfucker. He's even, when it comes down to it, I'm looking at, my world, and every now and then I do my own little personal private for about 3.5 seconds. I do my own little pity party, poor Rob, poor me. Oh, nobody gives a shit. Okay. And then Curve comes on and he's like, look at me, guys. And I'm like, wow, you really aren't shit. And yet Curve is doing it even better than me. And I'm like, fuck. He's got more challenges and more bullshit that he does not give a fuck about. He just shoulders it and goes, it's such his life. And he fucking does it. And I'm like, wow. He's even got it in some ways, in my own personal opinion, worse, if you will, than me. And the guy's killing it. He's doing what he wants. And I'm like, oh man. That's where I'm like, oh wow, nobody gives a shit. Okay, so you gotta understand it. If you understood half the bullshit that goes on behind the scenes, and that's that calibration and all these buzzwords that we love to use, you gotta be socially calibrated, and you gotta do this and you gotta do that, and 12 rules, and wash your penis and sun your asshole. You throw all that aside and you're just like, wow, I like this guy. He's real. He gets it. He's been there. That's part of like me and Chest. Okay. When he and I met and we kind of, pleased to meet you, how do you do type of bullshit. And then Chest was like, I got to see if you're the real deal. I'm going to drive out with some beer and see if you're bullshit or not. And I'm like, bring it. And he did, and and that was a fun time when you and Vince and TJ were at my house. That was a good time. I enjoyed that. But it was like real meets real, like, recognizes like, or whatever buzzwords you want to throw. You figure out what do you want, and you figure out the people you want in your life, whether that's women or it's men or both. You start to figure that out, and it comes from an amoralistic perspective, because there's things that Chest is doing that for me, I'm like, nah, that's not relevant. I don't care. But then there's other things that it's like, ooh, teach me, daddy. It is. That sounds, I'm trying for the what is it? The get the guys to all get riled up and comment and fucking, the engagement. Yeah. Teach me, daddy. Okay. But there are things that Chest has that I'm like, teach me, daddy. But then there's other things like, I don't care because it's not relevant to me.
Here's the secret.
The secret.
A secret. A secret.
Oh, Jesus.
I had it.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I had it in my head for a very long time that people wouldn't like me unless I was very impressive at a lot of different things. And, that has to do with, how I was brought up, some issues with, growing up. And, when it came down to it, I basically thought to myself, I'm a smart person. I learn things very quickly. What can I do, to, in a lot of cases, impress other people? And the way that I did that is I learned a lot of things about a lot of different stuff. A lot of it that was demonstrable. So like if I ever wanted to cook something, I could do it expertly. If I wanted to learn about, beverages and wine, not only could I make it, but I could recommend it. If I wanted to play a sport, I would be the absolute best that I could. And in many cases, it was a lot better than most people. But it had more to do with coming from a place of insecurity than it did from, actually wanting to learn and do a lot of those things. And what I found out later in life is that people are still impressed by all of those things, and it's cool to learn and do all of those things. And it's fun to be able to teach other people about a lot of that stuff. But in the end, if it's not what you want to do, you can look back on it and say, well, a lot of that time might have been wasted on something else that you might have wanted to do. So, there's that. The whole Renaissance man thing, or the well-rounded person trope, jack of all trades type of thing. Sometimes that's just a cope for a lot of people. And for some people, it's something that they genuinely enjoy. Now that I'm older, I genuinely enjoy it more. But there was a point in my life where I was more concerned about what people thought of me than I did about, what it is that I had actually done or accomplished. And that's the thing is, you need to own your shit.
Yes.
You need to own your shit at a certain point. And, you either accept who you are or you don't. But if you own your shit and you fix what you can and accept what you can't fix, then, you're in the best position to be able to just go out in the world honestly and deal with people one-on-one. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, it's really hard to be honest with other people, because you got lying down to an art, because you're doing it every day when you look in the mirror. Instead of just saying you're a piece of shit, when you look in the mirror, you got to convince yourself that you're not. And I think that, just accepting it is a lot easier in many cases than it is to try and say that you're not. So, like Nick August likes to say, you're a piece of shit. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, that's how I know when I see him saying that. And I know, and you get it, Chest, and Curve gets it, and Bull Rush gets it, and maybe Swerve, Alex, maybe he might get it. I don't know. The jury's still out there. Alex, yeah, I'm looking at you. Okay. But we all get that when he says, you look in the mirror and you go, you're a piece of shit. Okay. But the reaction he gets occasionally from some guys that it triggers them. It's like, yeah, you don't get it. Okay. You don't. And you just failed the beer test, and you just failed the meet my dad and meet my girls and meet my boss and coworker test. That is like, I will never invite you to my home. Okay. I might invite you out for a drink, and hey, we're in a public place and I met you. We had a drink. We had a few laughs. We backslapped and high-fived, and bruh, we did all that shit. But when it comes down to the after party, no, Chest and TJ and Vince and Nick and a few others, they're going to be coming back to my house where we're going to just be like, God damn, dude. Figure it out, guys. What do you want?